Good evening. My name is James Castle. This presentation is on quantum resilient encryption technology versus ransomware, written by James Castle and Flavia Kenon for the American Digital Week. I am the CEO and Chief Security Officer of Terranova Defense Solutions and Terranova TCU Communications. We are a manufacturer of commercial cybersecurity products in quantum resilient encryption, microprocessor architecture, and in secure communication solutions. Our company is a multi-sector specialized and offers direct services in cybersecurity, aerospace, maritime, defense, unmanned vehicles, and in communications. I am the chairperson of the Cybersecurity Global Alliance, which operates under Terranova Defense NFP and explores the possibility of creating cybersecurity legislation for global systems with a team in 9 countries worldwide. I'm additionally the Canadian ambassador for the EU Commission think tank called Drone Think Do, based in Brussels, representing over 30,000 high-profile tech companies in over 64 countries globally. I started the Terranova group of companies back in 2014, starting in public safety and emergency management. In 2018 and later, I was invited to speak as a special witness before the Standing Committee on Transport Infrastructure and Communities, the TRAN Committee, at the House of Commons Parliament in Ottawa as an expert in witness in unmanned vehicles and the future of drones in Canada. Terranova Defense Solutions is one of the companies owned by myself, which was elected as one of Canada's top defense companies in both 2020 and 21 by the Canadian Defense Review magazine. And over the years, it has expanded into a conglomerate of corporations, from defense systems to advanced cybersecurity manufacturing to innovation hub technologies, including cybersecurity, managed services, cyber ranges, and incident management, operating in aerospace systems and in smart city developments for climate change initiatives. I have worked as a volunteer in business mentorship, as well as working for my community, working and running recreational programs and helping people during COVID get physical fitness. I have been involved in this for over 3 years, and I'm currently involved working as a volunteer with the Canadian Standards Association group on a task force that regulates RPAS for emergency managers and emergency rescue personnel. My co-author, Flavia Kenon, is a leading British barrister. She holds an impressive and varied portfolio of national and international financial crime cases. Flavia advises startups, SMEs, and individuals on cyber fraud legislation, litigation, and regulatory issues emerging from new technologies such as blockchain, decentralized finance, and cryptocurrencies. She advises companies on how to respond to ransomware attacks and advised the BBC on the future of cyber attacks on media organizations. Flavia is frequently instructed to defend in complex, multi-handed fraud trials with an international dimension. She has defended insolvency prosecutions, money laundering, cyber fraud, fraudulent dealings, international conspiracies to defraud financial institutions, and conspiracies to making articles to use in fraud, Ponzi schemes, and fraud by misrepresentation. She has developed a strong profile in government advisory and ambassadorial work, recently advising the Romanian embassy in London on issues of state immunity and commercial property. Her advisory work also extends to non-governmental organizations such as Transparency International, for whom she has acted in an international case of bribery of public officials in the oil and gas industry in Senegal. Flavia is the author of numerous legal articles and is the legal commentator. She was educated at Oxford University and called to the bar in 2005. She is fluent in English, French, Romanian. Flavia is listed as a leading individual in both National Directories of Excellence, Chamber, and Partners UK, and the Legal 500. In the digital era of increasing cyber attacks, the Cybersecurity Global Alliance has investigated real solutions. A supercluster company in Canada has created possibly the first true answer to countermeasure ransomware. This countermeasure, which has been proven by leading Canadian Polytech University in Saskatchewan, was designed and manufactured to be the world's first superior commercial-grade quantum-resilient encryption software. Originally designed for the military and commercial drone communications, this technology was reconfigured into a Windows-based enterprise technology that is now compatible with Linux, Android, and Apple technologies. This technology was manufactured, designed, and built by our Canadian business partners, CEW Systems Canada, and with Terranova TCU Communications, who are working together in advanced manufacturing of cybersecurity products. As the world plummets into cyber and ransomware attacks, the world needs a superhero, and that superhero is CEW Systems Canada and its encryption tool, Bisymmetric Handshake. Terranova TCU Communications has already expanded into the unmanned and autonomous vehicle sector, automobile industry, aerospace and defense, and into future technologies such as hypersonic technologies and missile defense systems. Terranova TCU Communications is the future defender against electronic warfare and the next generation of quantum-resilient cyber defense systems, alongside with Terranova Defense Solutions. CEW's encryption solutions is defined as a quantum-resilient encryption algorithm designed to encrypt and decrypt data that is being transmitted via the bisymmetric handshake. The solution is ideal for all unmanned as well as manned vehicle communication to prevent cyber attacks from all computers, including supercomputers and upcoming quantum computers. These computers will soon be able to execute brute force attacks against intercepted encrypted data. On December 3, 2020, in the Journal of Science, scientists from China built a photonic quantum computer that they claimed to be 10 to the 14th power times more powerful than the third most powerful supercomputer in the world. The integrated cybersecurity solution proposed within will include internal and external communication encryption using CEW System Canada's bisymmetric encryption software. It uses challenge and counter-challenge codes to exchange public keys using private keys. This ensures listening parties, potentially attackers, will be able to read the contents of the encrypted data and or to send unwanted commands designed to interrupt onboard activities or systems. In encryption, there is a little-known issue that both cryptographers and hackers know about, but it's almost never talked about. Asymmetric keys use public and private key pairs, which are heavily relied upon because one can easily send public keys, which is intercepted or hacked and can be used to encrypt data. Only the holder of the private keys can decrypt the data. So let's think about this statement for a minute and the consequence in the context of a ransomware attack. Anyone with a public key can encrypt data with it. Essentially, what this means is that anyone who intercepts a public key can pretend to be another person and spoof the receiving device or person. This is one of the main reasons why hackers use to get into the back doors of servers. Let's consider for a moment and create an example to best illustrate this. In typical encryption descriptions, Farah and John exchange secret information while Max tries to intercept the encrypted data. So, Farah sends John a public key, which John uses to encrypt his data. But since Farah is holding the private key, only she can decrypt the message. Public keys will prevent Max from finding out what messages John is sending to Farah, but it does nothing to stop Max from pretending to be John and sending Farah a misleading message. With public key encryption, there is no true secure means by which to help Farah ensure that John and only John can encrypt and send her information. Let us take another pertinent example, the Internet of Things, technologies such as drones or garage door openers or automobiles. Each of these devices sends and receives data that through easily intercepted radio transmitting technology. A drone has been programmed to decrypt 4 commands: up, down, left, right. The drone would be programmed in more complex command codes, but let us say the programmers assumed the encryption would protect them. The drone receives a request from the drone pilot, we'll use the name as Alice, to send over an asymmetric key upon startup, and transmits a post-quantum level public key. Any person's, say Mallory, within transmitting range can intercept the public key. Mallory will not be able to decrypt the command codes Alice is transmitting to the drone. However, because Mallory has intercepted the public key, and since anyone can encrypt data using that public key, she can easily encrypt and send her own commands to the drone, causing the drone to, for example, crash into a near hospital, or even hit a plane that is flying through the air. Another example applies to garage doors. Let's say if Eric intercepts a garage door public key for a large underground parking lot, he can then sneak in behind Sarah's car, and Sarah will have no idea the public key that was used by Eric to stalk her via unimproved access. This is the same in case of cars. If Alice connects her smartphone to the car and Mallory intercepts the public keys, Mallory could take over unwanted functions of the car. There is a real-world vulnerability which currently exists and results in extremely regular data breaches caused by the repeated use of simple and easy-to-remember usernames and passwords. If Corporation A is hacked and all the unencrypted usernames and passwords are stolen, then there is nothing to stop hackers from reusing the stolen username and passwords and logging into large corporate online accounts. This is how Disney Plus service was hacked during their initial startup. In the example of unmanned drones, determining the identity of message command sender is paramount. Bisymmetric encryption uses a unique and novel handshake incorporating encrypted session key combinations, allowing users login credentials, biometric data, credit card data, or command activation codes to be quickly and correctly processed without directly transmitting this confidential data. The plug-and-play hybridized encryption system employs concepts like asymmetric encryption meshed with more secure symmetric encryption. A significant difference from commonly employed asymmetric encryption is that during the initial handshake to set up communication, no vulnerable data is exchanged. Should the sender key communication be intercepted by a hacker, they still cannot pretend to be the originator of the communication to the receiver. The bisymmetric handshake provides a new and novel encryption feature not found in any other encryption system. The handshake was set up specifically to exchange encrypted, randomly generated data instead of login credentials such as password and command codes, while still achieving the ability to ascertain the authentication of both parties. If the login data, command codes, or credit card data are not transmitted, how can it be intercepted or decrypted? During the initial handshake, private keys are generated from or found in the form of login credentials. Credit card information, biometric data, and other personal credential information are pre-shared private keys, which are then used to start the handshake, are never actually transmitted. At Terranova TCU Communications, we understand the claims we are making about our encryption API software, sounding extremely ambitious. Our software was developed over years, starting in 2016 to 2017, when we watched a news documentary on how easy it was to break into a key fob-enabled vehicle. A thief could simply walk up with a tablet and portable transmitter, execute a brute force attack, and be in the car in less than 30 seconds. The bisymmetric handshake was specifically designed for encryption of open-air radio communications where command codes are easily intercepted and recorded. The bisymmetric handshake was born out of this realization in which a unique and novel type of handshake can provide an excellent solution, one which is always happens to be quantum resilient. To authenticate the claims of our encryption software, we engage the services of the Saskatchewan Polytech Digital Integration Center of Excellence, also known as the DICE Group, to perform a short NRC-funded analysis of our bisymmetric hybrid encryption API system. Dr. Cecil M. Kupel is a PhD, ISP, ITCP, and is the Senior Research Associate from the DICE Group, was kind enough to provide the evaluation for us. Dr. Kupel's white paper was written from a point of view of e-commerce, with several mentions of Bluetooth, automotive key fobs, and related radio transmitting technologies. This of course, extends to unmanned vehicles. Within his paper, he directly quoted from third-party academic peer review of our quantum resilience software. Ransomware has become a flourishing global criminal industry. In just a few years, the scale and severity of attacks have grown at an alarming pace as cyber criminals look to exploit cybersecurity vulnerabilities to maximize profits worldwide. It is a crime without frontiers, as a single attack can rapidly spread across borders with devastating effects. An example in point would be the 2017 WannaCry ransomware attack that affected people in 150 countries. Ransomware is a form of cybercrime, a highly sophisticated, highly lucrative, and evolving white-collar crime that not only risks the personal and financial security of individuals, but also threatens national security and human life. Businesses, schools, governments, hospitals, critical infrastructure, and entire cities are now regularly targeted, their networks disrupted, and even held hostage. This is a type of malware, software designed to cause harm to a computer or a computer network for financial profit. The malware is designed to encrypt files on a device, rendering them unusable. Malicious actors then demand ransom in exchange for the decryption. Generally, an attack has two main goals. The primary goal is financial profit. The demand of the ransom payment is cryptocurrency, usually in BTC. to decrypt the victim's files, and secondary and subsidiary goal is the theft and exfiltration of data and the threat of exposing the victim's data on the internet, including copyright-protected trade and industry secrets, highly sensitive personal and non-personal data, if additional ransom is not paid. This is called double extortion. Attackers use a victim's data on the internet in addition to ransom attacks. Attackers use a victim's data as a bargaining chip, a further vehicle of extortion on the victim for the speedy payments of the ransom, or as an asset to hold on for later for sale, selectively, to other criminal groups or for later deployment in pursuit of further crime. Because the victim is dealing with criminal gangs, there are no guarantees that even after having paid ransom, the data will be returned safely. By the end of 2019, such was the level and sophistication of ransomware that cybersecurity analysts began referring to it with terms normally used for legitimate business models. A service market, a big business market, a big game hunting market for criminal groups to run as professional organizations. The ransomware as a service, also known as RAS model, in particular allows criminals without technical sophistication to conduct ransomware attacks anywhere in the world. And, at the same time, technically knowledgeable criminals are conducting increasingly sophisticated attacks fueled by ransomware payments. For anyone in the private or public sector who has been a victim of a ransomware attack, the question of whether to pay or not to pay the ransom becomes an existential one. Faced with such predicament, it is important that a clear and internationally recognized legal framework is put into place that will create legal certainty of how such a pressing issue. Presently, there is no such legal framework in place. No international or indeed national law enforced agencies have reached a consensus on whether such a payment should be made legal, a decision which has undoubtedly involved difficult policy considerations. Presently, victims agonizing about whether they should proceed to engage with attackers do so in a legal vacuum and may expose themselves to unwanted liability if they have not sanctioned to be compliant. Making a ransomware payment per se is not unlawful. However, the current legal position is far from being clear or reliably consistent due to the varying global laws. Arguably, it is extremely onerous for a victim to identify the payment recipients under the short timelines of a ransomware attack, bearing in mind the decentralized nature of the attack and of the method of payment in cryptocurrency. The demand for the ransom payment in cryptocurrencies adds another layer of difficulty for a victim to be able to trace and identify the recipient and thus be sanctions compliant. Attackers have become well versed in the use of blockchain with its transparent ledger of transactions by law enforcement and digital forensic agencies in tracing the payments. In order to obfuscate law enforcement and the forensic tracing process, cybercriminals are now using decentralized exchanges, which by their very nature do not have a middleman or intermediary, and are extremely difficult to regulate, as opposed to centralized exchanges, financial entities subject to anti-money laundering and KYC regulations. Attackers demand the payments to be made to unhosted, self-hosted wallets. Wallets that are not hosted with an exchange. An unhosted wallet is effectively software installed on a computer or device. The funds are controlled by the individual without the need for an intermediary. Users of unhosted wallets interact directly with a digital currency system without the involvement of a financial institution, service provider, or other intermediaries, such as a centralized exchange. Importantly, users of unhosted wallets can receive, send, and exchange their crypto assets with other unhosted wallets without revealing their identity. This makes it almost impossible for law enforcement, let alone a victim of an attack, to trace the identity of the ransom recipient. According to the chain analysis of 2021 Crypto Crime Report, the total amount paid by ransomware victims increased by 311% in 2020, reaching nearly $350 million worth of cryptocurrency. Although there is a strong presumption against making the ransom payment built into both the OFAC guidance and the UK-EU regulations, there is no legal clarity as to the status of making a payment to an organized cybercriminal group. The concept itself profoundly offends the old common law principle of aiding and abetting, assisting in the commission of crime, which in itself is an offense. There cannot be any doubt that the ransom payment constitutes criminal property. Most jurisdictions now recognize that cryptocurrency is property in law, representing the hacker's benefit from criminal conduct, namely from extortion, blackmail, and the ransomware attack, both criminal offenses in most advanced jurisdictions. Further legal considerations may also come into play. Firms that pay ransoms and their facilitators should also consider whether they have regulatory anti-money laundering reporting obligations under Part 7 of PACA 2002 and the Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Amendment Regulations of 2019 to submit a Suspicious Activity Report, also known as SAR, to the National Crime Agency in respect of information that comes to them in the course of their business, if they know or suspect or have any reasonable grounds for knowing or suspecting that a person is engaged in or attempting a money laundering or terrorist financing offense. This may commit an offense if they have knowledge or suspicion of money laundering activity or criminal property, do something to assist another in dealing with it, and fail to make a SAR. Submitting a SAR protects an individual and an organization by providing a potential defense against money laundering financing offenses known as consent, appropriate consent, and prior consent defenses. In conclusion, navigating the complex and unclear international sanction regimes while dealing with a ransomware attack and the demand for payment is a fraught process, which leaves victims of attacks vulnerable. The technical solution presented in this speech discusses the bisymmetric handshake, providing a new and novel quantum resilient encryption feature, which may just offer the much needed harbor of safety against the onslaught of ransomware attacks. For final statement, it is good to know that quantum resilient encryption software does not stop a cyber attack from happening, but it will stop the threat actors from taking that data and being able to read that data, which could potentially put an end to ransomware altogether around the planet. My name is James Castle. Thank you for watching, and have a great evening.